Okay. Okay, the time is 6:31. One. So yeah, because Anthony's filling in, or Mr. Hines is filling in for Mr. Sharp as an alternate. So maybe we just have an extra seat, yeah. Okay. I did see that there are a couple people on the citizens to be heard sign-in sheet. I just want to make sure everyone understands the citizens to be heard is different than the public hearing portion, because I know we get that mixed up sometimes, and sometimes we get some new people here. So I just want to make sure, I have 2 on the list for citizens to be heard. Are you Ron Henry? Okay, so are you here for one of the public hearings? Okay, so I'm going to move you over, and then when we get to the public hearing that you're here to speak on, you'll just come up to the podium there and say your name. And then always make sure the microphone is green. There's a little green button there, so, okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time is 6:33, and we will open our meeting. And we have roll call and excused absences today, so we will go ahead and take roll call starting on this end with Mr. Hines.
Jacqueline Garcia here.
Jennifer Grieve.
Maria Fishback.
Ryan Thompson.
Emma Hubbard.
Okay, and currently we just have Mr. Sharp who is absent. So if we can make a motion, no, don't make a motion because he wasn't called in. Okay, so we will move on to the invocation or moment of silence. And this is Mr. Thompson's turn to decide, would you like moment of silence or invocation? Okay, and would you like to give the invocation? Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for allowing us to assemble here this evening to conduct business on our citizens' behalf. Father God, I want to thank you for just giving us this moment of clarity as we, as leaders in this community, set to go forth and do your will. Father God, pray for the first responders and everyone that is out doing their civil duties. And I pray for just the state of Texas right now with all the turmoil that's been going on in the last few weeks with the heavy rains and so forth. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen, thank you. And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 5, which is our citizens to be heard portion. And let me move this there. Okay. This is the only time during the meeting that a citizen can address the commission. It is the opportunity for visitors and guests to address the commission on any issue, to include agenda items. All visitors wishing to speak must fill out the signed-in roster prior to the start of the meeting. The commission may not deliberate any non-agenda issue, nor may any action be taken on any non-agenda issue at this time. However, the commission may represent any factual response to items brought up by citizens. This is the Attorney General opinion, JC 0169. Limit is of 3 minutes each. All remarks shall be addressed to the commission as a body. Remarks may also be addressed to any individual member of the commission, so long as the remarks are about matters of local concern and not disruptive to the meeting or threatening to the member or any attendee, including city staff. Any person violating this policy may be requested to leave the meeting, but no person may be requested to leave or forced to leave the meeting because of the viewpoint expressed. This meeting is live streamed. If anyone would like to make comments on any matter regarding the city of Cibolo or on an agenda item and have this item read at this meeting, please email citysecretary@cibolotx.gov or telephone 210-566-6111 before 5 p.m., the date of the meeting. And it looks like I do have one signed up here. I have Mr. David Freimark.
I'll push to the public hearing part of it.
Sure, yeah, okay. We have no one there, okay. So item number 6 is our consent agenda. This is for the approval of the minutes from the June 11th, 2025. Do any of the commissioners have anything on the minutes, or are we good?
Okay, thank you.
No, since there was change, no.
Okay, perfect. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 11th, 2025. Can I get a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll roll call starting on this end.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Can we go back?
Oh.
And go ahead and excuse Anthony Sharp, because I did look and he did email it.
Okay, perfect, yes. So commissioners, let's go ahead and I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Sharp from tonight's meeting as he did email into Miss Peggy. Can I get a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. All
Aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is going to be item 7A. That is to conduct a public hearing regarding a request to amend the 2024 Unified Development Code, which you hear us call the UDC quite often, on the following amendments. 1 point Article 19, General Subdivision Standards, Section 19.9, Drainage and Flood Hazards. 2, Article 20, Subdivision Regulations, Section 20.1.9, Platting Not Required. And 3, which is Article 10, Parking and Loading Spaces, Section 10.2, Parking Requirements.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you all know, we're in the middle of a UDC rewrite, as well as an Old Town, Downtown Master Plan. And so to support both of those efforts, along with some of the feedback that we've gotten from those public engagement efforts that have came along thus far, we are trying to put this in front of you to amend the current UDC to help relieve some of the requirements within the Old Town District. So it's to exempt the platting requirements, the drainage study requirements, and on-site parking. We can go into the draft ordinance for the actual discussion action portion. I'll leave the rest to the citizens on what they want to talk about for this public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spencer. I will go ahead and open the public hearing from item 7A, and the time is 6:39. If anybody is here that wishes to speak on this item, if you could just come to the podium and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Kearns. I live at 555 Lower Valley Lane on the south side of Cibolo. But I own property here in downtown Cibolo. I have the mill at 200 North Main. I also have the Rooted Fork at 201 North Main, and I also have 504 File Road off of Main Street here as well. In the 10 years that I've owned the properties, it's been challenging with the current UDC to do anything. I've been in front of y'all, well, some of y'all weren't here, but I have been up to this meeting previously asking for variances multiple times. Some of them denied, some of them approved, then things coming back up here months, years later to come back to y'all's attention again. And it's very challenging and it's very costly. On variances, I have a good friend of mine that's actually opening a vet clinic here in downtown Cibolo, and she's in the works on it. And the number of variances that she's going to have to apply for include parking, include the platting portion. There's a lot because the properties here in downtown Cibolo, they were not meant to have parking lots on them. They weren't meant to house a bunch of people and things like that. And as far as the way the UDC is written, I had plans to expand the mill in the back and finish out the back space and bring more small businesses down here. But the parking situation and the way the UDC is written today, I would have to put in asphalt or cement. But it's like, where do you want this water to go? We don't have drainage. And so there's a lot of stipulations and things like that that affect us, and we're having to deal with current spaces that are already existing, pre-existing, that we have to have accommodations for. And the way it is today, we have to spend more money than the average person, shall we choose to do anything with these properties, because of the number of variances that we have to apply for. So I'm asking y'all to really think about this and approve what our planning folks have spent a lot of time, and I've been to the meetings that they're talking about, and we have voiced our concerns on the way things are right now. This would only help, if this is approved, to do more things. And this would help me to move forward with finishing the back of the mill so that we can bring more families down here and people down here to experience what our cool little town has to offer. So I ask for y'all's approval tonight to move this forward to council. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Kearns. Okay, do I have anyone else here to speak on the same item 7A? And if you could just state your name, please.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Ron Henry. I live at 917 Resaca in Cibolo, and then I own a property here on Main Street as well, 506 North Main. We recently went through the process of going full commercial, and I 100% agree with Cassie. And as a real estate broker and people that are coming to me and asking me to, can you sell our properties? And we want to sell them commercially. The issue is parking, right? My next door neighbor, for example, there's no way to park to get to her backyard. So a vehicle could not drive on her property to park in the back. It's required parking. So that's a major issue, on both sides of there. And as Cassie was saying, as we're continuing to grow and bring these beautiful homes, or not homes, or converting the homes into commercial, I think it makes a lot of sense to remove that. Same thing with the flood study. Like, we're aware that there's water here. We, obviously having those flood studies are extremely expensive. The cost that you come in, when we're trying to beautify this, I think that, we have a great business improvement grant, and working with the Economic Development Committee to get those grants approved is fantastic. But when you want to continue to beautify it and add these, our costs add up very quickly. Hundreds of thousands of dollars just to have places here. And if we want to continue to attract businesses and small town businesses and owners like that, when you look at other cities, it's a lot easier to do those in other smaller cities. And so that's where we're losing a lot of businesses to that. So if we want to continue to grow downtown and make it beautiful and have it, the entire length of the Main Street, I think this is something that we should definitely ask the council to approve.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
And, if you could just state your name, please.
My name is David Frymark. I own property here at Old Town at 203B Alley, and my wife and I, our residence is over off of Buffalo Trail. Not necessarily in Old Town, but pretty close by. I'm coming before y'all to really basically reiterate what you just heard from Ron and Cassie, is that Old Town Cibolo has such a great opportunity here to make itself better. And so rather than addressing it from a personal standpoint, let me just say this, that over the last few years we've seen our property taxes go up, a few times, right? And as a big advocate of lowering the property taxes, the best way to do that, obviously, is to bring in more sales tax revenue. And if we can make Old Town more business friendly, getting places in like a new vet clinic or what have you, that will ultimately help our bottom line as a city, and hopefully, if at a minimum, stave off property tax increases, and at best, maybe we could even roll them back. So I think practically it works, and also historically, like we already talked about, this area wasn't meant for a lot of these existing codes. It's just not practical. My wife and I, we own a small business here in Old Town, and I can tell you right now that we do our best to make sure that we're in compliance with all city codes. But at the end of the day, if we have to front thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars suddenly, a great idea that we might have to either improve our property or provide more services or what have you, it goes away because it's just not practical or from a monetary standpoint. So I just hope y'all will take this under consideration and really ask that y'all move this along to council. And thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Freimark. Do I have anybody else here to speak on item 7A? Okay, I will go ahead and close the meeting at 6:47. I'm sorry, the item, not the meeting. Close the item at 6:47. And next we have our second public hearing for item 7B. This is to conduct a public hearing regarding a request to amend the 2024 Unified Development Code, the UDC, as follows. Article 14.1 is the lot design standard, section 14.2 lot design, and 17 zoning district for, is it L1, industrial, 7 maximum height of principal building.
Good evening. This ordinance is to adjust the I-1 from 45 feet to 150 feet. This, we think will promote higher value in property tax assessment, higher tax base growth, a high-paying job creation, and more economic benefits from industrial operations. This will be along mostly the I-10 corridor and all the I-1 zoned properties along there. And for the discussion action, we have a presentation, so we'll get more into depth in that there.
Okay, thank you. And do I have anyone here to speak on this item? No? Okay. Do I actually have to say open and close of the minutes? Okay. I will open this item for 6:48 is the time. Do I have anyone here to speak for this item? No. I will now close at 6:49. Okay. We will now go into agenda items 8. These are our discussion and action items. Item 8A, discussion and action to consider a request to amend the 2024 Unified Development Code on the following amendments. 1, Article 19, General Subdivision Standards, Section 19.9, Drainage and Flood Hazards. 2, Article 20, Subdivision Regulations, Section 20.1.9, Platting Not Required. And 3, Article 10, Parking and Loading Spaces, Section 10.2, Parking Requirements.
Good evening once again, Commissioners. So again, this item is to align the UDC rewrite along with the Old Town Master Plan that are both underway and the goals that are within those, which are one of those being specifically for Old Town, creating those custom tailored regulations. So we all have heard from these business owners and residents within Old Town the unique nature of the lots, given their lot size, the history, and so that lends itself to these properties being treated a bit differently from other properties within the city. There are already regulations within the UDC that have some relaxation. However, as you've heard, that's not enough. So within this this agenda item, we also attached the draft ordinance. Within that draft ordinance, there's sections within it that have underlined words. Those underlined words are the portions that are proposed. So feel free, if there's any edits, red lines, or changes, we can definitely make those. These are just staff's proposals, but we'll go through that. And so the first section that's redlined is for Article 19, and that's in regards to the drainage and flood hazards. And so the part that's underlined, I'll start it here where it says, these requirements apply to all areas within the city and extraterritorial jurisdiction, except for those areas described in Article 20, Subdivision Regulations, Section 20.1.9, plating not required. This exemption applies exclusively to existing structures. However, if the cumulative square footage of all existing structures is increased by more than 30%, this exemption shall no longer apply. And so feel free, if there's any head scratching with 30%, if you feel like that needs to be less than 30%, more than 30%, feel free to make that change if it calls out to that. But this would specifically be the trigger point for whenever this exemption would not apply for this section. Does anybody have any questions or any comments on this specific section that's being proposed in the ordinance?
I'm going to start down on this side. Mr. Hines, anything for section 19?
I'm just trying to do some rudimentary math. So how did this percentage, how did y'all come to the math?
Yeah, so it's an arbitrary number at this point. So right now, within the UDC, I believe within the site plan section, it's about 20%. So if there's a 20% increase of any square footage of existing buildings, then that triggers the site plan requirement. That's just kind of an example. But the 30%, again, yeah, it's an arbitrary number. So oftentimes what we see with our downtown business owners or people who want to redevelop those properties, they use the existing buildings. And so if there's any expansion of those existing buildings, whatever percentage that might be, that could also lead into the drainage exemption requirement. So obviously that will impact drainage in a way, but again, specifically for this section, yeah, 30% was thrown out as an option, but again, feel free to change that if need be.
So that, I can see where that could possibly work into the amount of impervious coverage on the piece of property that you have. And 30% of 1,200 square feet is just about 350 square feet. You know,
Yep,
so
that was the
it's-
example I
It's a patio, it's a men's and it's a his and hers restroom, that sort of thing. It's just not huge.
That's what we figured. Most of the old residential structures were 1,000, 1,200, maybe the max 1,500. So you're allowing up to a third to be expanded of those original structures before the other subdivision plating requirements are triggered. This would be the exemption for those historic structures.
Yeah, and these properties down here actually are SF6 or almost 7. And so if you really start trying to squeeze those, I'm good with the number. It makes a lot of sense. If you're trying to convert a house into a commercial building, you're typically going to have a his and hers, have to add restrooms. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Dodd? Ms. Garcia?
I have a question, but I'm thinking how to word it, so can we skip me for right now?
We can go back to you, definitely. Ms. Fishback, anything on section, Article 19?
No, no comments.
Okay, Mr. Thompson?
No comments. I think you cleared it up. I was thinking that it was preventing people from building that extra dwelling onto that property existing. My question, now I'm thinking of a question. Now, if they wanted to knock that building down and build over, they would have to plot, correct? Or replot?
No.
They wouldn't have to.
They would not, with this ordinance, and we'll get to that section, they would not have to plat.
Yeah, that's what I was, okay. All right.
Ms. Hubbard?
I have nothing.
Mine was the same question as I kind of emailed into you guys, kind of asking where you got the 30% from. So it's just kind of a random number where not a lot of, I'm trying to understand the actual thought process. So Mr. Hines, you're saying like on a 1,200 square foot home space, 350, which is about the size of a standard bathroom. So, I guess 30%, but in our site plans, it's 20%. So is that going to have any other issues where you guys are going to come back to us for variances, or there's going to be stuff because those numbers don't match? Is it better those numbers do match, or?
No, because if you look at it from this standpoint, typically, whenever somebody's starting from scratch, they have their plat, their site plan, building permit. So they skip the plat process. They can still do the site plan and the building permit. And oftentimes, in what we're trying to do with our UDC rewrite is to incorporate the building permit and site plan review process so that they're just one and not two separate processes. So that's kind of the thought process with that.
Gotcha. Okay. Then I don't think anybody has anything else on Article 19. Okay. Oh, sorry. No, Ms. Garcia, you did want us to come back to you.
I still don't know how to word it, so if you could go back to where you were saying that the 30% plays into the drainage part, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the parking requirement. So with that, actually, let's go to that section really quick. So 10.2.1 off-street parking, or let's do 10.2, just the parking requirements. The area designated as Old Town shall be exempt from required parking established in Article 10, parking and loading spaces. Should parking be provided on a property located in Old Town, the parking design regulations in Article 10, Section 10.6, parking space and parking lot design shall apply. And then under that, we have 10.2, off-street parking, Section 10.6.4, surface and maintenance. I'll just read the section that is underlined. Off-street parking areas, drive aisles, internal roadways, and loading areas within the Old Town District shall apply within the paving material standards established in this section. However, where a site is properly graded, engineered to direct surface drainage away from the public right-of-way, alternative paving materials may be permitted as an exception to the standard requirement. Such alternative materials must demonstrate durability and dust control. Approval of alternative materials is subject to review and authorization by the planning director, city engineer, or designees. And so going to your question, Ms. Garcia, I think these two can kind of tie together in terms of with the square footage that's being proposed. So oftentimes whenever you have the buildings being expanded or an increase in impervious cover, that might, affect drainage in that sense. And so that's what I was referring to. And I think this section 10.2 refers to that specifically with the parking area. So with the parking, kind of like what we heard from our business owners, I believe Ms. Kearns had mentioned it with the parking being asphalt or concrete. That is a requirement. However, they are allowed to use alternative paving materials, whether that's limestone, caliche, gravel, as long as there's no offensive or nuisances that are created with, the dust that's being kicked up from the vehicles driving over these types of materials on the property. So that's kind of going back to this parking requirement. But in a nutshell, that's what I was referring to with the additional impervious cover, whether that's from the building or whether that's from the parking, that would have maybe some increase in drainage from that property. So.
And I guess that's kind of my question. So I know that we kind of don't want to do anything that's going to cause problems in the future. So have y'all looked at if everybody were to do an improvement, would it factor into drainage? Would it cause drainage problems? If everybody were to expand on their properties and now these homes are being sold, made into businesses, how is it going to increase in the parking? Is that going to cause a problem down the line? I know that you're saying, that's expanding from the 20 to 30 feet, but we're also talking about the parking and the drainage. So have you looked at those factors? Like when would that be a problem? Or even if everybody went out and did it on Old Town, it would be okay? So that's what I was wondering.
So the issue of drainage in Old Town, there's not a engineered drainage system within Old Town presently. There never has been a drainage system designed or implemented for Old Town. Everyone's sheet flowing from their properties onto either the street right away or to whatever minimal drainage system exists within Old Town. I don't think that the increase of 33% of impervious area will impact the overall drainage system, but we have asked the Economic Development Corporation to fund an area-wide drainage study and drainage plan. That would be very useful to the city as a whole, but not place financial burden on individual property owners to perform their drainage study. So just to give the commission a sense of some of the costs that small businesses are facing, right now your code says everyone must plat if you have an unplatted piece of property. In Cibolo, that's running anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 to hire an engineer to go through the platting process and have your documents reviewed. Part of the requirement of the platting process is that you perform the drainage study, and I think the numbers we've been hearing is $15,000 for a drainage study. So for these small businesses, before they even open their doors or begin remodeling or applying for permits, they're already $30,000 into their project. And so we're trying to find a way to address that drainage issue. We'll still seek funding from the EDC to do an area-wide drainage study. But
So all those
we
factors
believe
have
that
been
just
looked at?
incremental impacts of the smaller lots will not have a cumulative impact that we have to worry about.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Then I guess on section 10. Mr. Hines, I'll start at this end.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to make sure, and I appreciate what you're doing. I really do. I think this is something that's been a long time coming, and it really does need to be done and looked at here. So I'm sure y'all have looked at this one thing, start another. And so what is the impervious cover percentage allowed on the typical lot in downtown? Is it like 55%? Because I'm just doing some quick math here, and then let's say that you have a 2,700 square foot lot at 55%, then you can cover it by up to 1,500 square feet. Are we still going to be hitting our heads on that if and when we allow these? Am I being clear?
Yeah, the overall lot coverage ratio.
Right.
If the commission wants to make a recommendation that we address that issue within the draft, we can modify the draft as it moves to council and tackle the percentage issue.
I'd like to have some thought process,
Okay.
have the big brains go over that. And if you're getting to, or you need to go over that point, is it going to trigger to the point where you're using pervious coverage if you're going to add a parking area?
Yeah.
That is going to trigger that you will use crushed granite or something like that for your parking area rather than going to parking.
Yeah, and I would also offer, we're not going to perfectly regulate a site. We also rely on the private enterprise to make some judgments about the design of their site. And so if you go across Old Town and you look at some of the heavily landscaped lots, they're doing that by themselves. They're not doing it because we're regulating and requiring them to do that. They know that an attractive property attracts customers, and so maybe they will not do that 65-75% impervious cover.
Yeah. I'm not big on big government. I'm really not. I'm just when we start hearing all the different war stories, I want to make sure we're not fixing one thing and triggering another. So,
right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Dodd? Ms. Garcia, anything else?
No.
Okay.
One. And we're not regulating the aggregate they're putting down for the coverage, are they? It doesn't have to be uniform and anything coming down the line. If this business owner wants limestone and another one wants something totally different, it doesn't have to be, it's not written like that currently.
So we're proposing that you move away from required parking based on the square footage of the building, and we're eliminating that. And we're saying you as a business owner get to decide if you need parking, and you get to decide how much parking you need. The only thing we ask that if you do put the parking in, you select a material, because if you go through Old Town, there's concrete, there's asphalt, there's gravel, there's a lot of different applications of parking areas. So now they'll have a full menu of options available to them on what material they elect to provide. All we will guide is the size of the spaces, and that's about it.
And that is
And the drainage.
in the drainage, right?
Right.
And that is included in when they do the initial site plan, correct?
That's correct. So we're requiring that they drain internally, because if they're electing a material that causes silt, we want it to silt in and not onto the public right-of-way.
Okay, okay. Because you don't want that runoff going off into
Correct.
your drainage system. All right. I think that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Hubbard?
I have nothing.
Okay. I did have a question on where it talks about, I also emailed that in a little bit, the dust-free. I'm going to use the mill down there as an example, if that's okay, because the parking lot down there is gravel. Is that what it is considered on the side?
So it's partly asphalt and part gravel.
Is it part asphalt?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is the building.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I should have called you up. I'm sorry. If you can come up here. Yeah, I'm just looking for an example.
Yeah, so what
that
I can
side
tell
lot.
you, so the mill, it was pre-existing. So at the time that we worked on that building, we were allowed to keep, because it was already a parking lot. We didn't make it a parking lot, it was already a parking lot. So the parking lot is half asphalt and half gravel, and then it goes to cement to the driveway. So the gravel stops about, 12 feet from the road, and it goes to cement, and then gravel, and then it's partially asphalted. Now, across the street at Rooted and the parking lots there in 1908 and Kenling are all recycled asphalt. So we laid base, and then we came in with recycled asphalt and had rollers, because recycled asphalt is a cheaper alternative. It's not as expensive as fresh asphalt, but you roll it out just like you do normal asphalt, and it repaves itself. And so that's what's across the street. Now, Nick's parking lot, he chose to put in the asphalt. But I think our UDC, as it stands today, if you were going to build a parking lot, it would have to be cement or asphalt. There's not another option for us right now today. So anybody coming in would have to put in cement or asphalt at the way the UDC is currently written. And I can tell you that there's a lot of water that dumps on my property. And it flows to the back of my property, because that's where the creek is, right? So it naturally flows backwards. And I do not want a asphalt or a cement parking lot, because it's gonna, one, create faster flow of water, and I don't want to be directing water into someone else's property. Right now, it absorbs into the ground, a majority of it. So that's the thing I think about with Old Town is the more permeable that we keep the surface, the less runoff we have in the road. The more cement and asphalt that we start adding to Old Town, the more runoff in an area we don't have drainage in to begin with. So I appreciate him adding the alternative, option to the UDC to make it where we're not having all these water runoff issues.
Definitely, thank you.
Yeah.
So who is, because that's kind of what I was thinking when I was asking you guys about the dust-free is, when you visit the mill, it seems like a decent balance. I don't feel like I'm kicking up a bunch of dust. I don't feel like stuff's getting on my car or whoever's coming in and out. And so here it's saying that it may be permitted as an exception to the standard requirement. Who's going to approve that? Is that the city? Is it going to come back to P&Z? Is it going to go straight to council? Like if they choose to do kind of what, it's Carnes or Kearns? Kearns. What Ms. Kearns is explaining, how her side parking area is kind of a mixture. And I think that the gravel, like she's saying, kind of does help versus if we do require that to all be just paved. So I just kind of have a question on that.
So the situation that we face as the planning department is the UDC says you must have asphalt or concrete parking lots. The reality is, over time, options have been granted. And to the dust-free condition, that's existing language. That's why it's not under
Correct.
That's already in your code.
Gotcha, okay. I just want to double, triple check that. So Okay, that's all I had for, let me make sure. Does it make more sense to have it written somewhere where it requires you said something about requiring it to drain internally? Whereas right now it reads, I'd have to go back and find it.
Drainage exemption.
Where is that one section? It's just the way you worded it right there. This says surface drainage away from the public right-of-way. Are we covering our bases by saying just that, or is it better to say that it does require it to drain internally? Because then it keeps it off of not just the public right-of-way, but it would keep it off of, any residential neighbors?
Sure. We could add the language in if the commission prefers, but the city's interest, of course, is to protect the public's interest, which is the public right-of-way. The property owners have a private claim against each other if one neighbor floods the other neighbor. It's not really a city issue, it's a civil matter between the two property owners. But if you want to add that, now, we wouldn't be able to go and enforce, because you would need engineering studies, you'd have to be able to prove up the flow. That's not something the city is going to tackle. That is something
Okay.
that the property owners would.
Okay, that's just one of the things I was gonna,
I think it should be added to the list of materials.
oh, go ahead and,
I think we should add to the list of materials that we will accept in addition to the asphalt and the concrete, just so that there's no confusion later down the road. Somebody might say, well, you said we could use something else, and then they use something that. Yes. So I think if we had a list added to that you can choose from these type of materials, it would just eliminate any confusion as to, I think if we added something like that also.
We could survey what's up and down Main Street and come up with a list based on what has already been allowed and, or is in place, and then we might add impervious pavers or kind of traditional materials that are used as alternatives.
you're okay. Did you want to, yep, go ahead.
Because this going forward would be the UDC's mission requirements, right?
Well, we'll give the consultant the drafts if they get passed by council and ask them
Right.
to incorporate into the new.
So we're going forward for the next 5 to 10, 15 years, so we need to have that kind of structured planning, so no one,
So there's no question.
no questions, yeah, because I love that, that's a great idea, because when you outline it, people could follow, hey, we can have this is my left and right limits, hey, let's follow this, and it'll make it easier on the future business owner, and then they can associate costs with their planning process too. Because if I know that it's gonna cost me 15 to 20,000 to just get my parking lot paved, then another 15 to 30,000 just to submit plans, and I haven't made one sale. And this whole process, takes almost a year to start to finish. Probably get a lot more business revenue, like the young gentleman said, because that's been the biggest problem. Is I'm big on eliminating red tape where we don't necessarily need it. And I understand the roadways, making sure that the stuff is not running off in the roadways, because you don't want a whole bunch of debris in the highway. But other than that, I think it's kind of cut and dry. What do you guys think?
Can add this right here.
I agree. I think we all agree that, these changes are good, but I think that they need to be made. But I think that we don't want to, a few years from now, have to deal with any type of problems because we weren't looking at things that could possibly happen. So I think Ms. Green's idea and then the list would be perfect to add that way. Does anybody have anything else they think would be?
I agree with that, because right now you could put mulch down. Yeah. And if you put mulch down, then you just have a mud pot in a couple of months. But I like the idea of what's been down now, the hard surfaces the pervious hard surfaces that are going down now. And all of this is if the business owner needs to build the driveway and the parking lot, if. Yeah.
My last comment is just back to the approval, their designees. I prefer just the planning director and city engineer. I feel like we've had a lot of staff turnover, and I kind of feel more comfortable with the two more top-tier positions just to keep it consistent. Is that an option to just leave it as planning director and city engineer?
Yeah, we can definitely make that.
I mean, these are just ideas, because that's where we're at right now. This is just a draft. So even though I know it's a discussion action item, are we actually having to approve this, or you're okay to take it back and kind of tweak it a little bit and bring it back, or?
If you choose to approve it tonight, we'll just take those edits as direction from the commission, and so we'll send out a revised draft to you individually as it moves to council if you want to verify we've incorporated those.
Yeah, because we don't want to slow anything down in the process. I just want to make sure that, everyone's kind of, yeah, okay. Does that sound like a fair? Okay. And I'm not holding tight on the requires drains internally. I was just wondering if there was something to just, keep it cohesive. But if you're saying it's a civil thing, they can't really do anything anyways, and I guess it doesn't matter if it goes in there or not. And anyways, but yeah, if you just want to add a few items to it and then keep moving it along. Perfect. Thank you.
I think we should just add it just as a precaution to let them know. Because they can always say, well, I didn't know. So I think it would be, we've had people come up here before who said, I didn't know. So, yeah, I think it would just be.
Well, I know there is city ordinance that I feel like you're not allowed to drain onto anyone else's property anyways, whether it's blowing your leaves or draining your swimming pool, right? Isn't there already something that says you're not allowed to push your yard something onto someone else's property?
There may be, swimming pools are different than stormwater.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, in general, isn't there something that basically says I can't just shuffle my water wherever it's coming from, my pool, my car, okay, that's fine. Let's move on to the next thing. I don't want to keep this too long. Okay, so item 8A then, we need to make a motion to recommend to council and mayor with the added conditions, added language to approve item 8A as written. Does that work, Ms. Peggy?
You're adding the list, making a list of the
Materials.
materials, and you're adding for the planning director and the city engineer. Correct. Those two items are being added.
Yes, and then it was also the
Planning director. the
draining internally.
Just to be added so that
Yeah.
it's on there.
Okay,
And then, Aaron, we're making certain that we're not going to be hitting our head on that total impervious coverage
30%.
issue.
Yeah, impervious coverage.
Then that one too.
oh, I'm sorry, what is it, Mr. Hines?
Excuse me. That, we know that you're going to probably have to add restrooms, but we don't want to say now, because the current structure is so large, you can only add a 50-foot restroom area. Just what is it going to take, whatever language y'all come up with that explains how you can, if you're butting up against that total percentage of impervious coverage, how do you work within that? Okay. I don't have the answer, I just have the idea. Okay. Thank you.
So do we have a list of what's gonna be added?
They're going to email it, so they're going to email basically this draft reformed to us, and then council meets at the end of the month on the 22nd. So it'll be to us before then, and then they'll have that version in front of us. So we just need to keep an eye on our email probably for the next week and a half.
So council will hold their public hearing on the 22nd, and then they will not actually act on the ordinance, which will be in its final format until August 12th.
Okay,
So you have time to see that ordinance before it goes to council. And if it doesn't reflect what you had intended here, you'll let us know, and we can always change the dates.
perfect, yep, that gives us plenty of time. Okay, so how would you, I guess we need to reword the motion to,
You can just put it as it is with the changes made,
okay,
and then we'll make sure that that goes back to all of you.
okay.
I think that captured what needs to be changed.
Okay, so make a motion, like to make a motion to the mayor and council for item 8A as written with the additional language discussed here tonight, hitting the 4 basic items? Okay. Can I get a second?
I second.
Who went first? Ms. Fishback. I have a motion and a second, starting on this end. Mr. Hines?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. On to the next. Item 8B, discussion action to consider a request to amend the 2024 Unified Development Code as follows. Article 14.1, Lot Design Standard, Section 14.2, Lot Design, 17 point Zoning District, I-1, Light Industrial, 7, maximum height of principal building.
Good evening again. I'm gonna pull up the PowerPoint real quick. So this ordinance goes over changing the I-1 to 45, or from 45 feet to 150 feet, and this is specifically along the I-10 corridor. This won't encompass the ones on Industrial Drive or kind of within downtown. So some of the key factors influencing the ceiling height in contemporary manufacturing, the contemporary manufacturing facilities are seeing a trend towards higher ceilings, and the neighboring cities, they are changing their codes to be 60 feet to 100 feet for industrial development. This optimized picking and packing operations. It accommodates future technological advancements and operational changes, and specialized manufacturing equipment like overhead cranes and certain machinery. The maximum height of an automated storage and retrieval system can be customized to exceed 100 feet in height. So this will help with those systems that are already over 100 feet in height to have that additional footage. And with a pallet rack laid out with narrow aisles in between, a crane with tall mast travels through the aisle and moves vertically and horizontally to storage picking positions. The unit load ASRS systems are designed for larger loads, which are pallets or pallet-sized loads. Some systems are over 100 feet tall. And then these are some examples of those ASRS systems. And these are what the manufacturing facilities are, the height is. And then this is a elevation drawing comparing the current maximum height that we have along that I-10 corridor to the proposed maximum height of 150 feet in this ordinance. Any questions?
That was great, thank you. I want to give just a little additional background.
That's fine.
We don't want to have an executive session with an attorney? Because if it was recommended in the beginning, the fact that it's taken away kind of makes me nervous. What do we need to?
You cannot have an executive session without the attorney.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
what
But it
she's
was
saying,
recommended,
so-
we had one to begin with, and now you're saying that if we want to move forward, let's just scratch the executive session?
Well, the executive session was there in case the commission wanted additional information in order to understand the magnitude of the change from a 45-foot tall building to a 150-foot tall building.
Then why, then, if the executive session was being offered, then why did it get
We didn't
dismissed?
invite an attorney.
I'm sorry?
We didn't include an attorney in the meeting. We would need, according to our city secretary, we need to have an attorney present.
No, I understand.
If we need additional information.
Right, if you need additional.
But if we don't, then we're good to go. So we just need to figure out if we need additional information.
I don't think we need additional information.
I don't think we need additional
Yeah,
information.
Does everybody have enough information then on going from 45 feet to 150 feet? Because I mean, that is a big,
Yeah, it's only the, affects the I-10, that sort of thing, so.
everybody is comfortable without,
Yeah, because they're saying only the I-10 corridor, so what would be out there anyway?
a lot of
For-
farmland.
45 feet tall is just a one-story metal building.
Well,
That's it.
isn't it like 12 foot per floor-ish?
So
So 45 feet's more like a
Yeah, but
three-story
you go to
building.
peak, when you go to the peak, and then you have your attic and your HVAC and those sorts of things inside of there.
Yeah,
It's not much.
okay. So at this point, I guess we just need to decide for item 8B.
I would offer. So if you look at these buildings, these industrial buildings, for the most part, they would meet the 45-foot requirement. But those taller areas are where these new storage and racking systems are being introduced, and they need the additional height. It doesn't cover 100% of the building footprint, but these companies that are considering coming into the area need to have the flexibility to decide where that higher area is going to locate.
And if we want to be competitive, we need to do something like this. Otherwise, Schertz is going to get all the business. New Braunfels is going to continue to get it, right? We need to be competitive to allow these companies to come in and be able to do the processes that they need with the space that they need.
So we do want to go down the line, or we just free?
Yeah, I was
rein?
gonna say, okay, so let's reel it to we're on 8B, right? So we need to discuss, you've already done your part, and you're just letting us know that item 9 is not gonna happen. Right? Yeah, okay, so we out of order. I feel like that probably should have come up before item 8B though, because otherwise we would have already discussed and then gone back there, and then we would have been backwards. But anyway, so for item 8B then, let's go ahead and have our discussion there, understanding that we don't have executive session coming, right? Are we good? Okay, so Mr. Hines.
All right, so this was pretty much the industry I've spent my entire life in, and watched the size of the structures, really grow and really, such as that. So within these guidelines, is it roof line? Because there's a lot of different types of, just talk about distribution, that's what I know. Your HVAC systems, you have a lot of pipings and stuff that goes across the roof line. It covers the roof. Different things mainly for your refrigeration. And this to say that some large brewery wanted to build out there, and their tanks are 80 feet tall, but then they have 25 feet of apparatus above that. Is that covered? Does 100 feet guide that, or are we just talking about roof line?
You know more than I do. I've met with prospects that are looking at Cibolo, and they told me that unless this increases to 130 feet, we're not even going to be considered. So 150 is what industry is seeking in these palletized racking systems.
Mhm.
So we're increasing the envelope so anybody that's interested will fit within that.
Okay, yeah, so that kind of answers the question. And then for the paragraph that's being added here, it's really narrowing down into our current district, as you could say, our light industry district. But there are properties right across there. Do we need to narrow it down to specifically saying properties south of Bolton Road and south of I-10?
There's properties on the side of Bolton,
Would-
north side of Bolton.
Yeah, we call it north, yeah.
Okay, call it north. They're not zoned light industrial. Most of that is either agricultural, maybe there's some commercial. Now, if property owners decide they want light industrial zoning, if they want additional light industrial properties north of Bolton, they would come back to the commission and ask for rezoning. I think we would encourage that, but just for the current situation and the prospects that we're approaching, we think there's enough property south of Bolton, including I-10 and across I-10.
Right, and I'm on board with I-10 corridor. So it's just my question, general question to everybody, is that, are we, it is okay, but or should we be narrowing it to just Bolton Road to I-10, or just say the I-10 corridor, light industrial area?
You could leave it broader, that's up to the commission.
I mean, because.
I get what you're saying. I'm going to go to Ms. Dodd, and then maybe we can answer. We'll all think about that, because I do have something to say too, but go ahead, Ms. Dodd. Okay.
I don't have any comment.
Ms. Fishback?
So just on what Mr. Hines was saying, though, it says here south of Bolton Road. It doesn't say on Bolton Road. So it's actually limiting that, right? So it's south of Bolton Road along the I-10 corridor. So I think I think that is clear to me anyway, that that's what they would build. To our planning directors, to tag on to what he said, it'll be up to the homeowners or the landowners, right, in the agricultural. If in the future they want to go ahead and rezone, then they'd have to come to us if they want to become light industrial. But for now, it wouldn't, I don't think, according to how I read this, it doesn't affect the properties on Bolton Road. It's south of that.
Our industrial park, actually, it does touch Bolton, and it touches Bolton Road, so they have entrances off of Bolton Road.
Yeah, I just realized your screen is on, and I don't know why my screen's not on, so I realized I can turn it on.
My question truly is, do we want to just to give, if anybody on the other side of Bolton Road, do you want to open that door now? Or just say if somebody's interested in selling property for that, then they're going to have to go through all these other steps. So.
Why did you choose the specific south of Bolton Road, I guess, instead of just leaving it bold? So, Mr. Hines, what I'm getting is you're trying to amend it a little bit where it's just more generic, and then our city staff put in south of Bolton Road, because that's where, I can never say it right, Aishin? And then, that section. So pretty much what we're doing with this is it's narrowing that section, right? Which I personally think is better than making it too broad, because there is a lot of agriculture out there, and I never want to push out the farmers or the homesteaders or the legacy landowners. They're very important, I think, in the cultural landscape of the world. But, so I kind of like it a little bit more narrowed, but I guess I really didn't hit on that exact section, and I'd have to go back and drive back out there and really see, like, and I kind of jumped in front of Mr. Thompson. Do you have anything? I should have waited. Okay, Ms. Hubbard? No. Okay, well then I guess I'm fine. So,
Yeah, I like it more narrowed.
Ms. Garcia, what'd you say?
I myself like it more narrowed instead of leaving it open.
Do you guys have a reason why you kind of narrowed it down in that, or like was that better for everybody as a whole? Because that's always what we're trying to do, right? We want to make sure it's not you know, it helps everybody. It's a win for all sides of it. Okay. Well, I prefer it to stay south of Bolton. You prefer it to be more generic?
No, I'm just
What-
asking the question. I'm perfectly fine with this. We deal with what we have now.
Okay.
And just the question is, but what if someone right across the street has property that would be ideal for this, serve this purpose as well? They're just gonna have to come lobby everybody for all the for that opportunity. They're just gonna have to go through the processes of rezoning and all those sorts of things to be included in this. I'm fine with as written. I'm just asking the question. Yeah.
Okay. And then my last just question, just because we're a training knowledge-based, you know, always wanting to know answers, why did we completely strike 8? Which is ETJ classification light industrial, like,
ETJ classification, light industrial.
okay.
There's no zoning in ETJ.
Then that would make sense why it was struck. Good to know. Okay.
No idea what that means.
Okay. There is no definition. We've been finding stuff like that for the last couple years, so that's fine, but I was curious myself, so perfect. Okay. Commissioners, anything else, or do we want to make a motion? Does anyone feel like I've made a few motions tonight? Does anyone else have want to make a motion? Going once. Okay, then I will make oh, go ahead. Nope.
Looking for the wording. You can go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ms. Fishbeck.
So I move to make a motion to recommend to the city council and the mayor to approve item 8B. Do I need to add anything else?
No, you can just say as written.
As written?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. We'll start on this end.
Aye.
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 And I do think you guys did a great job of putting together some of the language and the standards as to why you were recommending this. I appreciate the industry trends there. I work in some of that stuff, so I do understand. I was actually kind of shocked to see it at 45 feet, but it made sense for kind of how old our town is. But I do agree that we need to, if we're trying to keep pushing things out on I-10, we do need to get a little bit more with it. So, so thank you for all that little added extra pieces. That really has made a big impact in how us commissioners are able to narrow in what our homework is, because we have that short time frame, and especially this time with the 4th of July holiday. So, so thank you guys for all that extra work. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item 9. Do I just say is struck, or? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. 8C, I had one more. Oh, yes. Okay. Item 8C, discussion and action regarding the removal and/or appointment of members to the P&Z subcommittee. So Mr. Hines and I have sat down and we had some conversation, and he would like to see as many people as he can put hands on this training project and module. So at this time, I'm able to have a little bit more time, and so we were talking about me tagging in for Mr. Hines's spot. And so we talked to Miss Peggy and the city, and we had to actually have it as a vote. I mean, it's a good time if somebody else wants to change out, but that was just kind of the discussion that we had had. And so with item 8C, I wanted to ask if y'all were okay, if we could make a motion to, do I have to officially say remove Mr. Hines, or do I just say appoint Jennifer Grieve in place of Mr. Hines? The subcommittee, I'm sorry, for the subcommittee, our training, I guess it's technically, yeah, it's in there, the P&Z subcommittee for our training. It's our training subcommittee. Is that what we officially titled it? Training subcommittee?
You can make a motion to remove Mr. Hines and replace Mr. Hines with
Okay.
in one motion if you want.
Okay, so is there anyone here, because it feels weird for me to make a motion for myself. Should I make a motion for myself, or should Mr. Hines or someone else do it
I'll
for
make
us?
the motion. Tag,
can I
you're
just-
it.
Oh, yep, go ahead.
If I can, may I just, one other thing, if anybody else would like to be on it, I'm happy to also be replaced. So if somebody else would like to put hands on it,
Mr. Thompson. So currently, right now, maybe I should go back. Currently, we have Mr. Hines, Ms. Fishback, and Mr. Thompson as our 3 members that have been doing this for quite a few months now. And so are you 2 wanting to stay on, or are you looking for a also tag in? So Mr. Thompson is looking for a tag in. Is there anyone else that would like to? I mean, technically, we could do it with 2, but 3 is the maximum, right? So we don't make quorum.
I can tell you that at this point, there's a lot of good information, and Mr. Vasquez is a great resource for these things. And really, it's just a matter of identifying things you want to use in this last phase. It's just going to require some more reading.
Yeah.
And then as far as the subcommittee meetings themselves, we've spent, maybe an hour of our personal time, something like that, and just because we would share the information, do our homework, and then we'd get together, and we did a conference call for maybe an hour.
Yeah, and we also have access to the city annex little building meeting room in there too. I like to, that's a
Yeah.
good little spot. Ms. Hubbard, are you interested? No? We can still have.
My plate is already very full.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, if you need to tag out, and we know Mr. Sharp isn't here tonight, and he is a trainee, so maybe, I don't know, at this time, it looks like maybe we should remove Mr. Thompson and leave a spot open. Can I do that? Can we remove Mr. Thompson and Mr. Hines?
If you want to. If you just want to tag in for Mr. Thompson, that's fine. And I'll let you take the lead on identifying important issues. And Ms. Fishback, if you don't mind just staying with us. And
no, I'm happy to stay. It's just I wasn't able to lead, and so we depended a lot on you, right? And
Yeah.
then we'd review everything and then meet and discuss it and then present it.
Okay.
It is, and I'm not apologized because I've gotten distracted by other things and let this kind of fall by the wayside. But like Ms. Grieve was saying, you've had a few things come off your plate, so now you have
Yeah.
time to do some research and introduce this into the discussion side. So
Okay, well, why don't we just do that then? We'll leave it at 3, and then I'll tag in for Mr. Thompson. So can we make a motion to, someone would like to make a motion?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to remove Mr. Thompson from the
Training subcommittee.
P&Z subcommittee and replace him with Ms. Grieve.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, and we'll start on this end. All in a roll call vote?
aye.
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 Okay, all right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for all the work you've done so far, and we will continue it on. Okay, now, item 10. Oh, wait, what?
That's after executive session.
Oh, yeah, it was like, what is that? Doesn't make sense. Going to item number 11, our UDC CIP master plan and staff updates. Item 11A, which is our special meeting discussion. Y'all buckled up? Ready? Where you could cater in if we needed breakfast. Okay.
I'm sorry, I have a question from last night. Did they go ahead and approve for them to put that on the lot? Just as long as they didn't hook it up to anything? Did that go through?
So they authorized the city manager to authorize the property owner to move the unit from the sales lot to the property.
That's it? Okay.
I'm gonna need to advertise, so I'll have it drafted up. If we submit it tomorrow, they can publish it by
So when does this have to go to council? By the 12th?
August 12th,
So it has to be how many days?
10 days prior to that meeting.
And I'm not available till at least the very end of the month. I'm talking 30th or 29th or something. So I don't know what everybody else's schedule looks like, if you have a minute to pull it up. And the special meeting, you're saying it doesn't have to be in the evening, but I feel like most everybody, in order to make quorum, I feel like it would have to be a 6:30 meeting. Is that correct? Oh, sorry.
What about next Wednesday, the 16th? Can we get a quorum on the 16th?
No, I'm not available till the very end of the month. So the first week of August, I guess, would work as well.
She's saying it has to be
Oh.
before the 30th.
I could do the 30th.
Well, it has to have 10 days before the 12th, so I guess it has to happen before the 2nd of August. And you have to give 10 days notice. And it has to be 10 days out from today. So, Miss Peggy, can you give us,
She's still going over her days.
oh,
No, so she has to give 10 days, today's the 9th. If she gives the notice by the 16th, the 30th can happen. Yeah, no. The question is, are we available on the 30th?
You're not,
I am.
are you?
That's two, that's three, that's
and,
four with you.
and also because it is a pretty big decision, I feel like I don't want to rush a meeting and then all of us not have time to prepare. I mean, I feel like,
But they want it before the 12th.
well, but it's a special meeting and we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence for the whole town of Cibolo, not just one homeowner.
I'm sorry, did you have a date that you were considering it?
28th, 29th, or 30th.
I'm available all 3 days.
The 30th are the two best days.
One more time, Miss Peggy, I'm sorry?
The 28th or the 30th of July.
The 28th or the 30th of July.
You just need a quorum.
And I can do either.
I can do either.
So that's
Okay. Anyone else? 28th and 30th. 28th is a Monday. Mr. Hines prefers the 30th. Okay, so 30th. 30th then.
I have the draft ordinance, I'll email it out, as long as you'll not deliberate and communicate on it, wait till the meeting, but at least
Yeah, no, we.
information to review it.
Yeah, we wouldn't do that, but I think there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of information, and we haven't had to do a lot with this, and we also haven't seen cups in a long time. So by removing a whole thing from the UDC, we need to make sure we're doing our due diligence. I don't like changing the UDC just on a whim. It needs to be very thoughtfully planned in benefit and health and safety and welfare of the majority of Cibolo. So
The
30th.
30th at 6:30?
Oh, it'd be still 6:30. Mr. Thompson, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question. Why is it being fast-tracked? My first question is, why is it being fast-tracked? And what's the sense of urgency of the change? Why?
I'm gonna try and communicate with the citizens.
Last night, yeah.
overly burdensome, and so they're asking us to come up with an ordinance.
So we're going to, so essentially, we're going to amend our overall ordinance because one family is having financial hardship on property that their family already own.
And this, well, this goes back actually a few years because we had the same problem in 2022, and it was a mess, and it was right in the middle of the holidays, like Christmas time. It was really bad. So I think we're just trying to avoid these things happening over and over with families, because when people are doing things with lots, or developers or whatever, or whoever's selling lots, they're not giving all the information. They just want to sell, get their money, and then the people who buy it are at the mercy of like not knowing what they don't know. And so here we are again, 3 years later, dealing with almost a comparable problem that we dealt with in Christmas of 2022.
Yeah, so I think there's just a lot of room for discussion, and there'll be that, for sure. So the 30th at 6:30 is where we're at. And, I mean, I would really do our homework and research. Any pre-questions that you have, send individually ASAP, because I have quite a bit. Yeah, I think we need to be able to headline all of the situation, and I'd like to know what happened with that past issue in 2022, because I'd like to know, I'd like to know where we're going forward with manufactured homes and agricultural. We were gonna get a map put together. Is that the map that was in this packet? I can't remember if that was the map from, did we already get that map, or was that just sent to me? Here it is. Yeah, this is something we definitely need to pay attention to, and I really recommend everybody drive around Cibolo. If you're not already doing it before your meetings, it's highly recommended, because we need to know what everybody's affecting when they change decisions. Yeah, so, okay, so special meeting 6:30 on the 30th. We need at least 4 here for quorum. Whether you're attending the meeting or not, please send any questions, ideas, thoughts in to city staff, because I feel like this kind of is a big one. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
How many, my next question is, I know we're going to have the meeting, but how many manufactured homes can they have if we totally remove the?
I think that's part of what we're going to be discussing.
Yeah, Mr. Spencer, is there a quick, or Mr. Vasquez, a quick answer to Mr. Thompson's question?
How many manufactured homes can they place on that 3 acres if it doesn't have to be plotted? Just one? Is it 1 per 5 or 1?
Well, they want to lower it from 5 to 3.
3, right, that's fine.
So
'Cause I
right now
know-
it's none.
Yeah, as it's written in the UDC right now for Ag District, there's no restrictions on how many units can be placed on.
That's,
The restriction would come from the septic requirement that the county imposes, so you have to have 1 acre for every septic.
Right.
And the fire emergency, which was part of the issue, whether you have fire suppression or whether the dirt roads versus,
Accessible to the fire
yeah,
engines.
the fire department isn't gonna get a vehicle stuck on a,
in my next question, Mr. Vasquez, right? So is it anything that alarms you guys as far as the residents' application process as it goes through this system going forward? I know we can't do anything about 2022 and beyond, but right now, do we have anything planning forward? If we have the rest of the ag land and somebody says, hey, you know what, I have 3 sons and I'm gonna divide it up and here you go. Y'all can each have a substitute. Do we have anything that will give you guys to alert you?
We'll bring in that ordinance options for the commission to consider on how many per tract, and come up with something for you to consider. I'm not really sure how to do that at this point.
Right.
Because some agriculture tracts are 50 acres.
Right.
Everybody in the family have one, and there's 5 of them or 6 of them. So,
Have your own community.
I'll write that, but we're going to take a look at it internally, and we'll come up with a draft.
can you also add in the council meeting last night where that was? Like if it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, is there a way for you guys so we could watch that? I feel like that would be a good homework for us as well to see what happened at that meeting.
Yeah, it was near the beginning. Because
Towards the
I was
beginning.
looking at it when I got home again to get all the information because it was kind of going quick.
Okay, well, that's
But
helpful.
within
If it's at the
within
beginning,
the first
then-
2 hours, yeah.
If you look at the agenda, it's pretty easy to discern where to go.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah, 'cause-
And then they skip around the agenda and
Yeah.
there's things, they'll have a
'Cause
4.5 hour meeting and I'm trying to
right.
catch
Well,
up.
we presented almost at 8, and it was before that, before we presented. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that would be helpful. I don't want to create too much work. If it's easy to find, then that's fine, but like I'm saying, sometimes it's not easy to find stuff, so. Yeah, or if you just, like I said, if it's easier just to send us a quick message, it's, before 10 minutes or something, then I'll find it, but, okay. Oh, anything? No, you're good. Anything else? No, okay, so item 11A is good because we are the 30th at 6:30 PM here. Please keep an eye on your emails up until then and ask questions and send messages into staff so we can have a productive session. Next is item 11B, staff updates, if we're all good to move on? We're all good? Okay, perfect. 11B, staff updates.
So not too many changes from the last time we had this staff update. Everything from 504 Fowle Road under the site plans to Cibolo Small Animal Hospital are the same. What's new is the Venado Crossing Amenity Center. That's currently under review, the site plan. Site plans and administrative plats recently approved. All of those are the same. Same goes for the plats currently in review. The only new addition is the 611 FM 1103. It's a replat. And kind of like what we had talked about at a previous meeting with our plats, the way how we interpret that 30-day shot clock now, we likely, as we go, might see more plats pile up in this in review section. So it'll kind of bottleneck a little bit here. Hence the reason why we don't have any plats on for tonight's agenda. But I think overall what we've actually, we just presented this to the San Antonio Business Association. It was well received. So the fact that they also felt that pressure as well, just from that 30-day shot clock, and hearing them say that they like that idea, I think that we're in the step going in the right direction. So for P&Z recommendations and City Council action, Venado Crossing Unit 6, that was considered at your June 11th meeting, recommended for approval. That was put on City Council's consent agenda. It did get pulled. There were some concerns in regards to a later phase within that subdivision that backs onto Arispe Road. Arispe Road goes through the floodplain, so there was some issues and concerns that were voiced about flooding that could potentially happen whenever that later phase gets built out. However, a motion to approve was set. It did not pass. It was a failed motion, but there was no new motions that were made. And so as we kind of talked about with the 30-day shot clock, if a motion fails or no action is formally taken, it'll be approved by operation of law. So July 11th is the date that the plat gets approved automatically. So by inaction, that plat is approved. Grace Valley Ranch Phase 3B, that went to your June 11th meeting. There were comments that were outstanding. It was recommended for denial. They submitted a postponement letter yesterday, and so City Council voted to postpone that item. And then kind of like what we had mentioned earlier, that city initiated zone change from the Muir District on all those properties along I-10 from Muir to light industrial. That was approved last night as well, 4-2. Were there any questions in regards to any of these items?
No, I mean, I just had a note that I've never seen in action before, so I guess I'll try to find that clip as well, because if we're doing the work to approve something and then it goes to them as the final authority and they're not doing anything at all, did we do something that didn't give them enough information?
I wouldn't say so. So by law, what is required for plats, that's what we stick to. So anytime, whenever we have any outstanding comments under that staff recommendation, we won't recommend for approval unless if everything's copacetic from planning, engineering, public works. So by law, that the plat was okay. It passed muster. Inaction on it is just what the law states in terms of no action being made on it within that 30-day time period. So that's kind of what I picked up on in terms of council's sentiment, because there's been other instances in which a plat does go forward. I think the Schlother Ranch was one. It was on the consent agenda. It got pulled, but ultimately it got approved. And another item was another subdivision in which action wasn't taken at all. Kind of like, even though the motion for this item did not pass, there's been instances in which council doesn't make a motion at all. So in those instances, by inaction, the plat automatically gets approved by law.
So shouldn't we just be taking that off council's plate to begin with, so their 6-hour meetings aren't so long? I'm kind of concerned that I didn't realize that was a thing. So you're saying this has happened, like that's the first time I've ever seen inaction written down on these updates. I just want to make sure that, we're here to support our council and to do all that, and if it's an extra step, or this goes back to maybe where we talked about why is planning and zoning still just a recommending body when we used to be an approving body, and then that would take things off the plate for council. I just want to make sure we're being supportive,
It's certainly a conversation that you individual commissioners can speak to council members about and figure out where the council is. The state law is very clear. State law says a city can adopt a subdivision ordinance. And once a developer meets your subdivision regulations, the plat has to be approved. And you can't, even if you don't like it, or you don't like a design or a style, if you take inaction, it's still.
On items for future agendas for next month, does that sound like something we want to do? Anybody?
Yes, because planning was something that came up during the Charter Review Board as well. And there was a lot of discussion about where our authority starts and ends, and then where city council takes over, and this is not indicative of that.
Can you add that to items for future agenda? It doesn't have to be next month, but that would be nice and give us time to, yeah, okay. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I'd say if you added that as soon as you could for the discussion, because the recommendations from the Charter Review Committee are going to council soon.
No, it's going at the next meeting, so that's.
Yeah.
So July 22nd.
They're presenting
The
at
charter
next
review.
meeting.
So now it's emails and conversations.
That's too late to actually try to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think some of the council members already said they want to keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we can still lobby our good friends.
Yeah, there's still conversation to be had. I know I've tried to bring it up once or twice, and anyways, it's fine. We'll work through that. I will put a little note in here. You were on, I guess, the mirror?
Yeah, so that one got approved at last night's city council meeting 4-2. And moving on to your economic development report that's in the packet, not much has changed here either. What's new under the building permits and process, there are labs off of FM 1103. I believe this is going in Steel Plaza across the street from the high school. And then there's a new page that our economic development team added that kind of dives more into their monthly efforts for business retention and expansion efforts. So feel free to go through that. Hopefully that's a good tidbit of information. I think it helps having Mr. Vasquez here as our planning and economic development director, and the amendments that you all had considered today, both driving economic development. So yeah, if y'all don't have any questions, I'll let y'all finish it out.
Okay, give me 1 second, I'm taking a quick little note. Okay. Anybody have anything for the staff updates and et cetera? Nope. Okay, I guess that's it. So we are on to subcommittee updates. Well, we're kind of going through some of that with the changeover of committee members. Is there anything that you all have?
We probably need to adopt phase 2. I don't know that we actually said, yes, we like it. Or
And
changes.
Yeah, I was kind of at a standstill on that because I wanted to see more of a syllabus or an outline. So with me being able to tap in, is there a way we can pause in adopting that and get kind of more of an outline worked out?
It's a good thing you're on board to get all this organized.
Do the heavy lifting, switch out? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I felt like I wanted to pause. That was my personal thing, but if everybody else wants to adopt phase 2, right?
I just think the syllabus would help, like when you're kind of confused as to where you have to go or should go. I kind of agree with Ms. Grieve that like it would, especially like people that are starting to come on, because I know when we started, we didn't know where to look for anything.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and that's just a thought, my simple thought is, it should be planning and zoning page on the website, training. Right there.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just, boom, there's training. Citizen training, that sort of thing. I think our intentions were, anybody can get on board, go through this process and come on board, not having to spend 6 months playing catch up, already have a sense of what your responsibilities are, and could possibly give you a better idea or desire to serve. If you have the opportunity to be trained, coming in, we know we did speak quite a bit during the Charter Review Committee about requesting that council actually create training processes and programs for all committees and boards. We kind of stressed that we just did it ourselves. We saw the need and we did it, but it needs to be a practice. It needs to be something that.
And you guys is peer review, honestly, because the structure of the infrastructure should already be in place.
It
We
should be, yeah.
basically gave them the infrastructure foundation with the syllabus. Now it's on the city. We give it back to them to implement the training to make sure that everyone else that sits on the dais know how Cibolo conducts business.
Yep.
And that's what the overall goal was. Did we meet the goal? Yes. We don't have a syllabus? No. But everything down the line will get you to the understanding. And it's stuff I'm still learning that when you come up here to the dais, it's stuff from 2 to 3 years ago you don't know about, and you're looking like, well, why hasn't that been fixed? I can't do anything about 5 years ago, but today, what are we doing to plan ahead? And I think if we continue to move forward on planning ahead, this is a good start in giving it back to the city to say, hey, this is what we needed as a planning and zoning committee. This is where you missed the mark, bringing us on board, because that's the bottom line. You had to learn on the fly. And everyone here has been willing, great team members, but after we are gone, you never know. You know what I mean? So we're trying to just make sure we leave our mark, and I think we've all done well, and continue to grow it, because it's going to morph. Because UDC is going to be changed, everything else is going to change. So we got to continue on with that process.
Yeah, if we expect future planning and zoning commissions to be a deciding body, we have to make sure we leave this better than we found it, and that anybody coming on board is prepared to come on board and make those decisions.
It is a learning curve. I think I may be the newest one on board besides the gentleman. But it was a learning curve to get caught up, and then being able to sit down with this staff, Mr. Vasquez, his team, the new team, they'll make time for you to sit in the office like, I didn't understand certain things. And then for him to give that information and that feedback and the willingness to put that stuff there. Before, when I first came, and it was a bunch of broken links. You know what I mean? Broken links. And now they're fixing it and they're putting the stuff in place. So it's like, I just think it needed feedback from the overall dais of us, so they know where to make to tinker. And I think that's the overall bit. And also, if, like I'm saying, if you have the authority as a planning and zoning and you have say in this community, I think the power should be in this group versus overall piggybacking versus the city council, because it represents a separate entity, a separate thought process versus everyone's city council, you're doing blah, 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 blah. I hate to say those, but you're solely focused on planning and zoning. And that's where your purpose desires. And then if you desire to move onward, you'll have the processes of how does the city council work? What does this work? And all that training structure or education structure should be somewhere online in the city government's catalog. All we do is tweak it based off the UDC update and getting with staff, because they're going to be the overall body that puts it on the digits for us or online.
Yeah, definitely agree with all of that. Thanks, Mr. Thompson. Yeah, for sure. I think we're all really passionate about being on planning and zoning and knowing that we need the training. And maybe that's why some of the, I've asked a couple times why it was even taken that we became a recommending body versus approving authority, because in most places in Texas, that's not how it works. So maybe with the training, and I like how you said that, because council is spread all over, and planning and zoning is, we are zeroed in on planning and zoning. And so, yeah, I've got some good notes there, so, okay. Okay, items for future agenda, we already kind of touched on that. And then I'm ready for adjournment if you all are as well, right? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. The time is 8:19.
I second.
Second, starting down.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. We're adjourned.